Technology Career Discovery Day. I'm Megan Cruzy, the Work-Based Learning Coordinator, and on the screen you're going to see Mackenzie Holly. She is my partner in crime. She's also a Work-Based Learning Coordinator. Today we're going to hear from our Iowa Central instructor, and then also past alumni of Iowa Central. So we're super excited what we have in store for you. So we're going to go ahead and start with Andrew, who's going to, he's our Iowa Central instructor. He's going to inform you guys about IT.
Good morning. As the introduction already said, I'm Andrew Thompson. I am a instructor, co-coordinator of the Computer Networking Technologies program. So just some background about myself. I'm actually a past graduate of the program. I graduated in, I think, 2012. It seems like forever ago. I can't quite remember, but I'm pretty sure it was 2012. My background, once I left here, I did 2 years as a technical consultant for a consulting firm in Des Moines, Iowa, where I got to be thoroughly field tested in every way imaginable and accelerate my career growth. And then I did a short stint. I say short, but 6 years isn't exactly short, at Corn Belt Power in Humboldt, Iowa, as a supervisory control and data acquisition technician, which fancy way of saying I managed the network that handled all the communications data. And now I was sniped to come back to be an instructor. Mr. Mathis and I had some conversations about it, and I was looking for a change. And this is where I ended up, and I have been teaching now here. This is my second year. Just close. Well, we're one semester away from being my fourth semester here. So I'm gonna kind of give you I have a presentation that was prepared by my cohort, Mr. Mathis, Mark Mathis. He is unable to be with us today, so I'm going to go through his presentation, give you guys some background into not just the program, but the field in general. And hopefully you're all so enthused that you all hop into the program. So let me share my screen here quick. All right. As noted, I am not Mark Mathis. I didn't change that, but we'll pretend I'm Mark Mathis. So if I mess up, it's on him. So what is IT? It's information technology. It's a broad subject. Anymore, it seems like everything is IT. It feels like we're in a world where information technology is such a broad scope that if you work in IT, oh, projectors, oh, this, oh, computers, oh, server infrastructure. It's permeating everything from small business to large business. A lot of diversity in this field, as some of our past graduates can probably attest to. It's a very broad scoped field, with a lot of different career avenues, which you can see highlighted here. This is a vast amount of different job titles you can have, and I'm sure this is a truncated list. This is obviously not everything that exists in here. Everything from applications directors down to webmasters. In my term, in my tenure, I was a SCADA technician, and that's not on here. So the field itself has many different paths that you can choose out of here. These are just a smattering of them, not all of them, but as you can see, there is a good chunk of career possibilities in this field. Overview of the industry. This is very broad scope again, but in this industry, it's fast. It's always changing. As everyone's aware, it always seems like there's always something new that's cropping out, new pieces of technology, it's changes every day. And that's just what we see. I know from experience that on the backside of that, the stuff that we don't see as end users, it changes. I mean, one day you've learned one thing, and then 2 weeks later, it's like, oh, yes, we've introduced something new here. So go relearn that. So it's ever changing, which I will say is uh, two parts fun, one part frustrating. It never seems like you're always moving. You always got to stay up to speed. And that kind of tails into the next thing. You're never done learning. With I don't think a day's gone by where I haven't learned something new about IT since I've been in IT. Part of that is, my own curiosity, but part of it is it's just part of the job. You, hopefully, you enjoy it enough to where you want to learn those things. It changes so fast, though. You've got to constantly stay on your feet and stay learning. Wage ranges. I would even say there's a bigger flux in here. With all those job titles, there's everything from entry level to advanced specialist. I know if you sit, you can go work. I'm trying to think what a common entry level placement. Geek Squad, is that still a thing? Out at Best Buy, I'd consider that more of an entry level starting position, and you can range all the way into super specialized. I worked with some CCIEs before, who all they do is networking, network engineering. They're like the head. I mean, it stops with them, and that's super specialized, and that's later on down the line. But there's a lot of upward mobility in IT. If you put in the work, there's a ton of upward mobility to take you pretty much anywhere you want to go. Let's see, work environment. Let's actually, I think there's a slide coming up here. We'll talk some of the local companies, and we'll circle back to the work environment, because that's also very wide range. Some of the local companies that we have, and this is again just a few: Decker Trucking, LeJames, CS Banks, Fort Dodge Schools, St. Ed's, New Co-op, the Labs. I mentioned Corn Belt. I'm sure there's more out. I mean, again, IT permeates everything. It's everywhere. So these are just the companies. I think we have past graduates that probably work at these companies here. I think one of my cohorts, one that I graduated with, works in New Co-op. CS Bank. Why is that familiar? Carson, is that you? CS Bank?
Oh, I'm up north. I'm in.
Oh. Oh, okay. I'm losing my mind. We have an intern right now at Decker Trucking. One of someone from the class below me worked at LeJames for a while. So we've got I think, is it Kevin Bailey that's out at the Fort Dodge Schools, I believe, or maybe he's not anymore. But we've put past graduates at a lot of these companies, which is saying something about our program too. Some bigger names in here, which everyone's heard of: Google, Facebook, Microsoft. These companies do have a footprint in Iowa. They have data centers. Closer down to Des Moines. I know. Is it? Where's the Facebook one? That's down in. Come on, someone help me out. Adventureland. Where's Adventureland at?
Altoona.
There you go. I think that's where the Facebook data center is in Altoona, I think. But there we go. Circling back, work environment. This is going to have a wide range here. Generally, from my experience, business casual is what you're going to wear unless you're in the data center that day, stacking and racking stuff, running cable or whatnot. But generally, casual, business casual. Work schedule, very dependent on where you end up working. But in general, 8 to 5, 7:30 to 4, whatever it might end up being. I would say that because IT is dependent on so much, that you should plan at some point on having to work extra hours. If you've worked in the field, you can probably nod your head and just say you've had to put in some long nights. I've been in that spot where I've had to put in some especially when I was down south, I've had to put in some long nights. They were good learning experiences, but boy, I was ready to get home after those trips. Work setting, again, pretty diverse here. It says office area on here. You're going to be in an office, but a lot of the meat of your network sits in a data center. So I don't know if you'd consider that an office. I'd consider that a data center. Traveling, again, depending on what your scope of work is. If you're the IT guy for a small infrastructure, you might work only in one location. If you, not to use my own experience, but if you're a consultant, I did installations in Florida. I moved all. We did a project for the Denver Broncos. So I got a little bit of travel in there. Safety. Big one on this. I will say, making sure you can handle those fast-paced environments. It is a little faster pace. It's not everyone can agree with this. I would imagine if it's working fine, you never think about it, but the second it breaks, that's when you start pointing the fingers at your IT person. So if you're the IT specialist in that instance, you got to be able to handle that. You got to know that when it hits the fan, you are the one that they're going to come after. So do your job well enough and you'll never hear from anybody. We'll cut over there. So we have two programs here. We have the CMR and the CNT. The CMR is the 1-year program. It's more tailored to, I'm going to use the term entry level. It's more around the computer repair, operating system level stuff at the consumer level, with some networking in there. And then what I believe is the bread and butter of our program is the Computer Networking Technologies program, which is a continuation of the first year going into the second year. We start tearing apart deeper networking, server infrastructures. We give you your entire network to manage, and you're in charge of it. So our 1-year diploma, the CMR, CMR, once you've graduated the first year, you get an A+ voucher, which is a certification exam. Again, I would say most entry-level technicians will try and go for that, or a lot of them will try and go for that. By going through the program, you get that voucher. One of the great things about our program, which not every program can say this, but we have tailored our environment to give you as much real world experience as possible. And some of that comes from the equipment that we've provided. Some of that has come from, not to toot my own horn here, but we brought in instructors. Every instructor that we have has past experience in the field. So we can inject our experiences into the class so you get a more realistic idea of what's out there. Another great thing is the lab work. Again, you have access to hardware and software that you're going to be using all the time. You're going to be doing tons and tons of lab work. Sometimes it's going to feel like the theory part is mixed in with the lab. That's by design. It's all hands-on. There's no better way to learn than to do, and that's what we do. We let you do it. So a little bit more about our CMR. It's in the first, it has changed a little bit, but in the CMR, you'll get 1 year of help desk experience. You'll have help desk 1 in your second semester, again with the A+ certification. The nice thing about our program is most of our books are digital, and we provide a lot of the equipment that you're going to be using. So there's not. I think almost every textbook but one is on either Cengage Unlimited or Cisco Network Academy. So that's baked into the course fees. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our Cengage Unlimited is like a flat fee per semester to get access to anything on there, which is nice. You don't have to have $1,600 worth of textbooks for your mechanical engineering classes that you didn't end up finishing. Our 2-year degree, again, I think this is where the real bread and butter is. This picture over here actually is good. This is part of the network. It's a little bit different today, but This is part of the network you get to manage. You get your own hands-on hardware. You get that. That's yours to manage. You break it, you get to fix it. It might help you fix it, but for the most part, it's yours. At the end of your 2 years, the whole idea, it's a broad scope of classes. Those classes are, we've got a lot of Microsoft classes where we learn how to do Microsoft Windows Server, and then Windows Directory Services, where we get to dive deeper into some of the Active Directory services and Exchange services. We are a Cisco Networking Academy, which means that the Cisco courses are meant to push you toward taking the Cisco Certified Network Associate exam, the CCNA. The courses now, there's 3 of them that kind of tie into that and are prep. They're building the groundwork for you to take that. Again, the A+ and then the Linux Plus. And all those are tests that you can take, not to harp on these, but these are exams that you can take if you so chose right out of college. Of these, I can say personally, I took the CCNA a few months after I got out. I did not keep the CCNA up, though. I let that one slip. They have a time cycle on how long they stay with you. But I took that, was just, I felt like the program prepared me very well. I didn't take the A+, but and I took a further up exam. I took the MCSE, which was a little further up the chain on that. And you can take those right out of college. These are just some of the highlights of what you're going to be learning through the 2-year program. Everything from PCs to printers in the first year is where we focused on the PC support classes. And then the big ones that are really, really hit in the second year courses with again, Windows Server Administration, Linux Server Administration, network security. We do have another program that's opening up, and I'll just mention it. We have the securing information technology, which is another option too, but we do some network security in here. And again, can't go a slide without mentioning Cisco. It's kind of our bread and butter. So the student assisted help desk or help desk students, again, I mentioned will get to work hands-on in the help desk. Our help desk sits about 10 feet away from your classrooms. And through your time here, COVID has obviously shifted the outlook of how that works right now, but assuming that that's gone sometime in the near future, hopefully, the help desk is where you get to work on student and instructor machines or do projects around campus with the help desk crew. It's hands-on. I mean, I don't know how much more real world you can get than working a job in IT. It's right in there. So this is what you make it. You can take this and run with it. You can do a lot in the help desk. We have the cyber defense competition and the Skills USA competition. We haven't had, just with numbers wise, we haven't had a team placed in a couple years, but from personal experience, these are great resume builders. I was on one of these teams, 2011 maybe. I was on one of these teams and I used it as a resume item for my first internship, and they thought it was really cool. So that is an option out here. I didn't get a chance to do the Skills USA, but that's another one that we do. And we got some past graduates. Now, I'm not familiar with all these past graduates, so I don't know as much about them as I maybe should, but we have a few past graduates on here, so I can't speak to them. I'll kind of jump ahead to some that I know. Walla Walla Public School District in Washington State. That's pretty cool. I've met Angel once or twice. She's been in a couple of our presentations before, but she's a graduate from 2008. She had an internship and got hired full time which is one of the great things about our internship program. Is a good chunk of the time it does lead to a full-time job. She works at Access Systems now, which a little cringy because that was a competitor to my first job. So I don't know how I feel about that, but this one I can speak to a little bit more because he was in the class behind me. This is Cameron Phillips. He's actually now changed careers. Well, not changed careers, but he graduated a year behind me. And I'm going to take a little detour here, but he is one of the success stories I can think of in the program. Had a bit of a tougher background, came in with very little experience, but in terms of just what you can accomplish in the program, if you put your mind to it, I would say he's one of the gold stars. He's one of the gold standards. He was, it's funny how I met him because he was friends with my brother, and I was a tutor for the program, and he would come in every single time we had a tutoring session. He was always there every single time, whether he needed it or not, and he was in there every single time. And now he actually works for Pearson, who's a large provider in the academic world. And and it's probably not listed on here. Obviously, it says he's still a IT specialist. He's not there anymore. He's not at Cornbelt anymore. He works for Pearson. He's taking now some courses and a test to become an SRE for Pearson. And I think Google actually created the role of an SRE, but he's doing all kinds of development stuff for Pearson. He's gone a long way since leaving the program. Don't need to talk about him. That was obviously I'm here, so I don't need to include myself in the presentation, but so let's see. Can I stop sharing? There we go. And that's kind of Mark wasn't here to present that. I'm sure he had some more insight into how he created that, but that's the crash course. I don't think I know Brandon as well, but I do know Carson. Carson's here. She was a student of mine last year. So she probably doesn't want to see me, but yeah, is there questions at all?
Yeah, guys, go ahead and unmute yourself if you have questions or put them in the chat box. I'll start with a question. I received one privately. It says, let's see here. If someone brings in a computer from the community, so just someone from the community, their computer broke and they bring it into you, are you guys able to fix it for them?
Oh man, I'm gonna have to defer on that one. Is John still on? John might have a better answer for that one. I can't, so I am not positive on that. I want to say maybe.
Well, this is John Hanson. We used to do that when we had the old help desk. People could bring their computers in, but it was typically relegated to more students, staff, and faculty. It really wasn't a point where people from the community could come in. And the reason for that is, as a public institution, we are not allowed to compete with a private company for a specific, in this case, repairing of a computer. There are a lot of people out there that have private companies that's what they specialize in, and we can't do that. What we can do is, though, we can repair our faculty, staff, and student computers here on campus.
So if you have someone who needs to get it fixed, have them give it to their student who is a relative and they can bring it in.
Thank you, John. Thanks, Andrew. Okay.
Always a way to scam the system, huh, there?
Look, I'm just saying, look, we have competitive pricing. That's all I'm going to say in the help desk. It's pretty competitive for that flat fee. So take advantage when you can.
Funny. Okay, I know we talked about Outlook. You had talked a little bit about like the businesses, what you can go into for careers, but can you talk about, Andrew, what is the Outlook? So if someone were to go into IT and they went into the program, what's the Outlook? Do you think they'd get a job right away? I know you talked about the internship program. Like, are most of the students going into that and then getting a job? Can you kind of hit on that?
Uh, I would say a good chunk of the students who end up working. I know one thing that's been hard is some of the students that we have, they're not necessarily set on staying in the area. So when they graduate, a lot of them look to leave. So I would say the majority of those, and I know just from this semester alone, trying to get students placed in internships, one of the things that a lot of I would say of the 7 internships we have, 3 of the employers, one of their big concerns was, is this person going to stay around? Because we want this to be a full-time job. We are looking for a candidate actively to hire on. So I would say it's a fair to moderate. Even I would say there's a good chance it would turn into a full-time job. A lot of these places have past graduates there who know the program, and that's why they're looking for interns, because they know what they learned. So they're kind of doing a little bit of extrapolation. In terms of if it doesn't turn into an internship, or sorry, turn into a full-time job from an internship, I have an opinion on kind of the IT market. I'd say the entry level is a little bit flooded, just because of the younger generation is becoming more fluent in technology. It's just the way it is. So the market has shifted over the past 10 years, even since I was a graduate. The market has shifted. So the lower end, a little more competitive, but going into the program can set yourself apart from some of them to take that next step. And I honestly feel like if you apply yourself in this program and aren't confined to the 4 walls, if you take home the material that we're learning and study it and expand on it on your own, there's only so much we can cover in 2 years. But if you're working at home and expanding your own knowledge, I'd say you can hit that mid-tier straight out of college. And I don't know how the past graduates feel, but I'm speaking from my experience. I jumped into a consulting job. That's like, it was mind blowing how much, how crazy that was. But the foundation skills I had here let me do that. So it, there's always a need for IT. And now you look at COVID, what it has shaped the landscape on with remote work and everything. There's been infrastructure expansion all over the place to try and facilitate these remote work. And I think that's a trend that's going to stay. If nothing else happened from COVID, one thing that I think will come out of it is that will be a trend that sticks around because of convenience, which is opening up new doors in the marketplace. So that's a long-winded way of saying you get out what you put in. If you really put your nose to the grind in the program, it can take you anywhere as fast as you want it. If you don't put in the effort into the program, just like anything else, you'll get out that result. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so we have another question in the chat box, but we're going to wait for that one until Carson and Brandon. So then all 3 of you can answer it because it's a really good question. So Carson, do you want to start and go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah.
So my name is Carson Tenaken. I graduated from the C&T program last May, so I'm a relatively new graduate. I currently work at First Citizens Bank in Mason City, Iowa, so that's up north. I am a IT help desk technician, so I am the entry-level position. I recently got out of a job at Omnitel Communications, which is a telecommunications company in North Iowa. And I was a network technician there. So I co-managed the network they had, and that was a huge network. But then I moved back to the bank. I interned here for 3 summers, actually, right out of high school, in the middle of my college career, and then after college. COVID took a hit on me trying to find a job, especially in my area, since it's just a small area. None of the businesses were hiring. So I didn't get a job until about September. So I was very thankful for the bank to bring me back in to do an internship. Yeah, I got into IT actually pretty early in my life. My dad works in IT as well. He's actually in the office right next to me. So I didn't work in, but he worked in IT. And so I like to say that I had my head inside of a computer since I was 4 years old. So that really influenced my choice. However, I didn't choose to go into IT straight out of college. Straight out of high school. I actually wanted to do photography. So that's how I got into Iowa Central. But when I went on my college visit, I got a chance to talk to Mark, and that changed literally everything. And then I was like, yeah, I'll do IT. So I'm so thankful of the education I got at Iowa Central, though. I mean, just like Andrew said, it prepares you so well for the real life that I was able to go into a job and be like, yeah, I can do this. It was great. A lot of hands-on things, a lot of labs. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do at my job and what I did at my past job. So if you guys don't know what a telecommunication service is, it's basically what gives you your internet and your phone service. So what I did at my past job, where I wasn't there for very long, I again helped co-manage that network, and it was such a large network. So I was able to do like labs, and we were putting in new equipment all the time, and I got to work with so many different customers, and it was just a cool experience to do. They didn't use Cisco products like we did in school. So I was able to learn an entirely new manufacturer. So I got to configure new routers and switches and firewalls, and it was so cool. And then I ended up getting asked to come back to the bank. So now my main responsibility is to just answer phone calls and help people and put in tickets and escalate tickets. But we work in such a close team here at the bank, so I'm able to kind of get into different projects as well. Yeah, that's basically what I've got. So if anybody has questions, it's kind of short and to the point, but yeah.
That was awesome. That's interesting that you went for photography, and then just by talking to, an experienced professional in IT, that's really cool. You found your passion before you, dived in, did all of that other stuff, spent all the other time and money. That's really cool. So good story. Okay,
Yeah.
if you have questions, please put in the chat, or you can unmute. If not, we're going to go to Brandon, and then we're going to get to some questions, because I have some private questions in the chat. So Brandon, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brandon Carney. Born and raised here in Fort Dodge. I actually graduated from the CNT program back in 2014. Right out of the college, I'll be honest, it was tough trying to get the entry-level position back in 2014. I actually had the opportunity to work for a local collision repair center here in Fort Dodge. Really, that was a blessing in disguise. I wasn't really using my full degree to the potential that it held, but I was able to make a lasting impact on that business. We moved everything from a local hosted system up to a cloud system for them. Really relieved a lot of cost savings that the business had to pay from their overhead. After about a year of that, I transitioned to the Fort Dodge Labs. At the current time, a German company by the name of Boehringer Ingelheim owned the facility. At that point, for 3 years, I was hands on the ground for level 1 help desk support. So I managed about 600 machines. There was 450 users on site. I'd travel down to Ames, Iowa. We had a satellite location down there. It was affiliated with Iowa State University. At that point, BI was wanting to grow their business and acquire another animal health business. So with that whole duration, our facility here in Fort Dodge was sold to Elanco Animal Health. So to give you a bit of a background, animal health business So we make vaccines for animals, food additives for animals to help with protein, et cetera. Our business itself is regulated by the USDA and FDA on certain products that we produce. So after 3 years of the help desk, I was hired on with Elanco to support R&D laboratories here. So my primary function as of now is to cover and upkeep all computers back in the laboratory. I don't necessarily deal with switches, firewalls on a daily basis, but it is good mindset to have that knowledge that the program has offered to us in the troubleshooting activities that we have to perform, not on a daily basis, but once in a while. So it helps to solve issues. Now for me, being a part of a global company, I have to deal with time zones as far as people across the globe. They help with certain issues. I can only do so much here at a local site basis. So it's a lot of networking that if you, depending on the size of organization you join, if you're good with your communication skills and networking with other people, that'll get you really far in a larger organization. Some other job duties that I cover on a day-to-day basis is computer system validation. What that all entails is basically you have a set forth packet of documents that says this computer is operating to these specs at all times. Why this is important in our line of industry is we can have auditors from the USDA or FDA come in, ask for this paperwork, and if they find anything out of scope, depending on the criticality of the system, they could actually close down our operations and cease production here. Now, working in the R&D space, we develop, or I shouldn't say we, the scientists develop different vaccines, et cetera, and they ramp up production, then pass it on to our manufacturing facility, which is also located here in Fort Dodge. So we're one of the few sites in Elanco that actually has R&D and manufacturing here at the same facility. I work with a team of 3 other individuals here on site. They cover the manufacturing aspect of things, but as a whole for IT here at Elanco, we kind of work in a mesh topology as far as everyone covers for everyone else to certain extents. For my line of work, I've had to do internal training with Elanco, nothing certificate based, but a lot of federal regulation training as far as like GLP. So GLP stands for Good Laboratory Practices. It's a lot of documentation, training, making sure I'm filling out documents right. They have all the needed information in the event an auditor were to come in. As far as other duties, I help support our headquarters, which is located in Greenfield, Indiana. Travel out there pre-COVID about 4 to 5 times a year. I've been offered to travel to Yarndoo, Australia a few times. That's actually where my boss is based out of. So once you get into larger corporations and start climbing the ladder, it does open up a lot of possibilities as far as traveling. If you're into that, you get to see diverse cultures. You get a lot of diversity on your IT teams. So I have colleagues over in Germany, Australia, France, Switzerland. It's quite interesting. I'll be honest, I struggle with language barriers. So when I first met with them, that was one of the bigger hurdles, is trying to understand what they're saying to offer the help and guidance from my point of view. So it's a lot of teamwork when you get into larger corporations, but like I said, if you're good with your communication skills, your agility as far as being able to flip a switch from one activity to another, it will really help you drive through the industry and get things accomplished. So That's all I had. Do you have any questions for me?
Good, thank you. That's a lot of good information. If you guys have questions, keep putting them in the chat or you can unmute. One of the questions we had, both of you pretty much answered. That was pretty cool. It was, what would a typical day or week look like? And then can you talk about the responsibilities in the field? So you both did that, but can you talk about your hours? I know Andrew mentioned that. So for you two, are you guys on call ever? Do you work the weekends? I'm sure things happen that are unexpected, but what does a day look like? I know you talked about your responsibilities, but can you talk more about the hours and whatnot?
Yeah, so for a typical day for myself, I used to be an individual that liked to have everything planned. I learned very quickly in the first week, you can have certain things planned, but just to go with the flow is the best answer. So typically, it depends. With me personally, with my manager over in Australia, my days can start in at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and I can easily go until 5, 6 o'clock at night, if not later. But most of the time it's 7 to 4 or 8 to 5, easily put in about 40 hours a week. Sometimes, depending on project loads or what I'm working on, I can easily hit 60 to 70 hours. Just trying to get things going so that way it's not on my plate as to why stuff's on hold. So.
Thank you. Carson, what about you?
Currently right now, my hours are from 7:30 to 4:30. At the bank, especially being in the help desk, it's a lot of, it's pretty hectic on some weeks, especially since now in COVID, everyone's at home. So it makes things a little bit more hectic, a little bit more stressful, but I actually love to work a lot. So that's great for me. When I was working at Omnitel, it was a little bit different. I worked 10-hour days from 7 to 6, and we had an hour lunch. And that was a little different. I worked 10 4-hour days, so I got my 40-hour days in. But with it being a telecommunications service, all their like work that they have to do on the network has to be when everyone's either asleep. And because now everyone's not at work, we have to do it when they're asleep. So a lot of our maintenance hours, maintenance windows were at midnight, 1 o'clock. So that was pretty interesting there too. I didn't get in with many of those. Most of the time that I had to go in was just a hair early, but I know that my boss was always there, either late or in the morning. So yeah.
And then did you say you and your father are the two main IT, or do you have other?
No. So right now at the bank, there's a team of, let me count, 7. There's about 7 of us. My dad's actually the head of IT, so he's not my boss. So yeah, there's 2 of us help desk technicians. So I work with another man, he's Brett, and that's his name. So I work with him personally. We work a lot together. And then we have just the step ups, and then my dad's the top of it. So.
Okay, gotcha. So now that brings me into the question that a lot of students always ask, what skills are you needing? So Brandon mentioned communication, I did hear. Carson, you just mentioned something huge, teamwork. It sounds like you have to work as a team because there's so many of you. So can both of you tell me what skills are needed? And on top of that question, what about if there is a student out there, or if I wanted to go into IT and I have none of the skills you're talking about, does the Iowa Central program or any other program anywhere, will it teach you those skills? You guys kind of touch back on those questions?
Definitely for me, Iowa Central actually helped me in my position right now. When I went into Iowa Central, I was very socially awkward. So with the help desk area that they allow you to do where you have to work physically in the help desk, it got me out of that social awkwardness because it forced me to answer phones. And so now it's kind of funny. Now it's like I want to answer phones. And when I went into college, I hated it. So I distinctly remember a lot of my instructors yelling at me to answer the phone my first couple of days of help desk. So yeah. And with teamwork, it's very good to be able to work in a team, just to be able to communicate well with each other and make sure you're not stepping on each other's toes, just have a clear mindset of where you need to be and what you need to do is easier to work in a team. So and then being helpful, always being there to help, always saying, hey, if you need help, I'm here, just being there and being able to communicate well is what's worked for me.
Yeah, so some things that I would add is so your online resources. I mean, at times Google can be your best friend, or even YouTube for certain scenarios. Another skill that I've learned along the way is knowing your limits per se. So you get into certain scenarios that you may think you know what you're doing, but as soon as you get to the stage where you're uncomfortable, I've learned along the way to always ask. It's better to ask instead of just continuing on thinking you know what you're doing, and then you may run into certain scenarios where you may screw something up, and then you're really in deep water. So always ask if you don't know for certain. I mean, everyone in the industry is willing to help out. Don't feel that you need to know everything underneath the sun when you graduate college, because like Andrew's alluded to, I mean, everything's changing on a daily basis. With businesses and cloud infrastructure evolving more and more rapidly now. I can personally say I need to do some training on, say, Microsoft Azure, because I've been around the Active Directory locally in data centers, and going to the whole cloud-based environment is somewhat of a new step you'll see in businesses heading to in the future. Agility is another one. If you can wear multiple hats in a business, that's always a good thing. Just showing that you're able to listen is another. Don't walk up into a business or into a meeting thinking you know all the answers, because I'll openly admit, and Andrew said this too, every day in the IT industry, you learn something new, or you learn a new way how to solve problems quicker. So just be open-minded when you go into issues is another thing that I'd offer up. So, yep, that's it.
I actually want to piggyback off that too, on both of their points. So Carson mentioned kind of being a little bit socially awkward. I can say from personal experience that I am I shouldn't say I am. I think I've gotten much better, but I was a terrible public speaker. Absolutely abysmal. I tripped over my words. I got super nervous. It's just because I'd never done it. I grew up in a small town. I had 19 people in my class. Everybody knew everybody. I lived on a farm, so it wasn't like, and it was, 10, 15 miles away from anybody. So I wasn't getting a social practice, and I just didn't care to when I was younger. So when I got into college, in the program here, when we had to do presentations and stuff, I was not good. But I did actually go out and I took a course for myself on public speaking, and just how to improve on that. And I feel like I've gotten better at it. Hopefully I have. I'm talking at you guys, so hopefully I've gotten better. And then, going back to mindset and skill set, things that you should be, the biggest thing is being willing to learn, being willing to do that. If you, and I'll piggyback off of Brandon's point, if you think you know it all, that's exactly what you're going to know. Everything you know at that point is what you're going to know. You're never going to learn more because you don't think you need to. And I can tell you, I feel like I have, over my career, I've accelerated my career and learned a lot of things. And then I always think about my first boss. The man was a computer. The man knew everything. He would pick up a white paper, read it, and be an expert on the subject matter overnight. He did things that blew my mind. And then I think about even where I am now. Like, do I really know as much as I think I do? Because there's always more. There's always somewhere else you can be. So what's the old expression? Shoot for the moon, you'll hit the stars still. Aim big. Don't ever stop moving forward. You should see my Udemy class list. I bet I take 5 or 6 classes a month just on Udemy. They might be short little ones, but it's always keep learning, and be willing to do that. And then I do want to actually point one more thing, because they mentioned, what hours and stuff might be. And this is such a, it's interesting listening to Carson and Brandon, because we came from the same program, but have such vastly different experiences, which is, I think, a testament not just to the program, but to the field itself, that you can get that much diversity coming from the same place. So I had no computer experience coming into the program. None. I was working at a lumber yard, pitching lumber into bins. That was my experience. I didn't like the job, so I decided I didn't want to do it. I started out my career in, I went to college for mechanical engineering and physics was where I started out, and I ended up in IT. But I took a year to pitch to get a job, and that job was terrible, and it brought me back. But so when I first started out, there was a lot of travel and a lot of long hours. And I got to see everything from, there was one weekend, I got a call on Friday night at 3:30. And I hopped in the rental car and I drove out to Valentine, Nebraska, where I spent the next 3 days without sleep, working for a critical access hospital, fixing their infrastructure. It's a hospital. You fix it. You don't put it off. You do it. And in that same token, when I came back initially at Corn Belt, I wasn't on call. So it was 7:30 to 4 every day. And that was nice for the year that I was in that spot, So it really just depends on what kind of infrastructure you're managing. If you are a consultant, buckle up. If you get that smaller infrastructure you get to work on, a little less taxing, but it is interesting to see the diversity in our careers, though. I think that's awesome that coming from the same program, we have such different experiences.
Wow, very good advice from all of you. A couple other questions before we wrap up. Does any student, you guys jump in if you have any more, please. You can unmute yourself, or you can keep sending them to me in the chat, whatever you prefer. But we just want to make sure we answer all your questions. So one of the other ones are, what do you love most right now about your job? So whoever wants to start can start.
I'll field this one first, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
So coming back as an educator was a gigantic shift in gears for me, because I'd been in the field since I left here. So it was a huge, just not kind of a shift. It was a total shift in how I perceived my job. But what I like most about it now, and I hope every educator feels this way, especially in this program, there's a lot of stuff we talk about that it can just whoosh right over people's heads. It's not always the easiest to, ascertain. It's not always the easiest to grasp. And I'm sure Carson and Brandon can attest to that. It's not always like, oh yes, they showed it to me once and I totally understand everything about it. So one thing that I've learned in just the short time I've been here, the 2 years, is you have to use different ways to try and explain it. And then there's always this moment with most of the students where a light bulb clicks, a gear shifts. And unfortunately, COVID has made it a little less personal, just because of, you're talking at computer screens and stuff. But in the classroom, I know for the first 2 semesters where I got to teach face-to-face, you could see it. As soon as one of the students got it, their face would change and like their shoulders would drop and like, oh, of course. And I love that moment. That moment it's in my IT career, the most satisfying thing I can possibly think of, when someone else gets it. And I'm going to just piggyback on that too. You can bring that into your normal day-to-day. Even if you're not an instructor, if you're working with a client and you're explaining something to them, because your clients want to know what you're doing, right? So you're trying to bring them along for the ride so they can, when you solve a problem, I think that's satisfying. So bring them along for the ride because they might get a kick out of it too. And then if you can make them understand what the issue is, you'll get to see that light bulb. I encourage everyone to go try and click that light bulb for someone, because it's a super satisfying feeling.
Yeah, I agree. I guess one of the most satisfying things for me in the workplace is being able to turn someone's day, as far as you'll have individuals in the workplace that are not computer savvy. They'll openly admit to you that they absolutely hate using a computer, some of which some users don't even know how to turn them on. So I mean, it's real life scenarios that you'll run into. Us being in the IT industry, it's like, okay, come on, you should know how to turn on a computer, open up, say Outlook, send an email. Not everyone in the workplace actually knows how to do that. And you'll run into like the diversity of individuals along with ages. But what's satisfactory to me is being called to look at an issue for someone's absolutely having a terrible day. They're not in the greatest mood. They just want to go home. And just a few minutes of troubleshooting, fixing the issue, and seeing that individual smile, it makes coming to work worth it for me, per se, just to enlighten someone, because computers, they can be a love-hate relationship some days. Some days it's great, everything's running smooth, but you do have days where it just seems like it's an uphill battle with everything you go to do or even touch. So it's one of those things. If you can ride the roller coaster of emotions, it'll make the journey worth it. And like helping individuals is what I find most appealing. So that really makes me feel good at the end of the day, knowing that so-and-so's mood has dramatically changed and they were able to get their work done.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Brandon. Because of me being in a help desk, I am the first person these people call. So, and I definitely get a lot of people who just don't understand computers or technology in general, which is completely fine. But being able to talk through it with them and I get to know them a little bit better too, so I can help them in the future and just talk through it with them until they can finally figure it out. And then they know how to do it later on is so rewarding. And then also being in this position, I'm able to help my colleagues. I can take work off of them so they are able to do more of their own things. And especially in my free time when I'm not answering phone calls, I'm able to do some more things. That's really rewarding to me too. In general, I really like to be able to help people. I love to work. So I always tell my colleagues or my boss, just give me a ton of work, I'll do it. So yeah.
I bet they love you. That's awesome. And that is such a cool thing. I myself have never thought of that, what you guys just said, because I always feel bad bothering IT. Even my past jobs, I'm like, oh, they're probably like, here she is again calling because she knows nothing about computers. But it's good to know the other side, that you all agreed that, you enjoy it so much that you love to help, you love to help. And that's really cool that it makes you smile and keeps you going. So that's really neat. One last question I have, unless other students have more, but advice. So you guys all three have given amazing advice to the students so far, but what classes, if any, would a student take if they're in high school right now? What direction would they go right now? Is there specific classes? Is there something maybe they should do? Maybe get out and do a job shadow with a business right now? What can help them grow so that when they get to college, wherever they decide to go, what they decide to do, they're on the right path to get into this career? And you all can go, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I actually, because I was able to internship at my bank before I went into college, that was such a helpful thing for me. So try to go out and do things like that. Just see if anybody needs help, really. If you really want to get into IT, to be able to learn what you can from home is probably the best thing to do, especially before you go into college. Because like Andrew said, some of these courses are pretty intense. So, just having a little bit of understanding will help you a long way.
Yeah, so recommend classes, I would say, is definitely speech classes. Anything, so say if you're uncomfortable with talking in front of crowds, talking in general, speech classes, comp classes, not everyone likes to write paperwork, but at times the best way of communication is just through writing itself. Some other classes would be, depending on what your schools offer, I can attest for like the Fort Dodge schools. They offered some web development classes, some basic generic like computer programming, et cetera, like that. So if your school offers that, it's just knowledge that you'll gain and you can use further down the road. But yeah, another one would be, what is it? It was on the lines of like a drama class, but it was a lot of improv talking. That would be another area to travel down. I mean, yes, you may not see the ties of having like a drama class to the IT industry, but you'll run into, say, walking in the halls of CNN users and whatnot, you'll be faced with a lot of improv communication in the workplace. So that's another area that I'd certainly try to hit up if your schedule allows.
I'm going to speak from a place of someone who had no experience coming in. The two things that helped me immensely through the program. So I kind of took to this program like a fish to water. I came in with no experience and it clicked. I don't know what offerings are out there, but anything in the science and maths, engineering kind of things that make you build your critical thinking skill, your troubleshooting kind of, here's a problem, attacking a problem. One of the things that I think, and that I notice in students, I kind of have a different perspective now that I'm instructing, is the ability to look beyond just seeing, here's this, being able to attack it from a critical thinking aspect. So any courses that help build that aspect of your education, we can call it, those would be brilliant. My engineering background is probably why I did so well in the program, because I had a way to perceive problems differently than those that hadn't maybe taken those courses. Obviously, don't jump into an engineering program just for IT, but something along those lines. So the science and maths are invaluable, not just in this program, any program. I encourage strong math and science skills just from any program. So.
Very good advice. Wow. And I got to tell you guys, you all three fooled me, because I cannot tell that any of you are shy. You all are very good at presenting. And when I'm putting you on the spot, asking you random questions, you're all coming up with it like this, which is good, because that means you have a true passion in your career that you're doing. So we're going to end with that, unless anyone else has other questions. If anyone is interested on this call, in taking a job shadow at Iowa Central, it does not hold you to having to go to Iowa Central, but we would love to welcome you on our campus to see what the program is about. So you can spend a few hours with our IT guys, with our instructors. We can give you a tour, sit down and have a discussion more about this career, and maybe guide you if, just like Carson had said. So instead of going in the wrong field, maybe, job shadowing or talking beforehand, so we can see if it's for you. Otherwise, if you have questions, you can absolutely get a hold of us or talk to our instructors. They would love to talk to you. Carson, do you have something else?
I do, actually. So I kind of want to give some advice to any of the girls that are in the call right now, because this is definitely a male-dominated field. All of the teams that I've been on have just all been males. And just one thing you guys need to know is do not be intimidating, because guys try to intimidate you. Yeah, don't give me that look, Andrew. You were intimidating when you came into class.
That is so, come on. I was expectitious, which caused imitation. Or yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
For me, it was fairly uncomfortable just because there was only one other girl in my class. And so that actually made it worse for me to kind of get out of my shell and to talk to people. But don't do that. Get out of your shell, talk to your classmates, get to know them. It helped with me. I ended up being a tutor my second year, and that really helped me get to know a lot of my my classmates. So definitely don't be intimidating. Go in with a good headset, and because you're female, you're gonna rock it. So yeah.
If I could piggyback off of that, one thing also that going back to kind of the social awkwardness, one thing that helps is and this is one instance where I think the stereotype kind of holds true. This field is typically filled, just from what I've seen, we're not all the best socialites in this field. It's one part that I think does have some weight to it as far as stereotypes. Now, some of us are social butterflies. That's, everybody's built differently. But just know that there's a good chance that if you're coming in and you're a little uncomfortable talking to people, the person across the way is probably in the same boat. So you share that commonality and can help each other, going back to teamwork, build that. And I was not intimidated.
Yes, you were. You can ask anybody. We thought you were mean. Like,
I'm not mean.
no, you're not now, but dang.
I am not mean.
I'm really glad you brought that up. That is a really good point that I don't think I even thought about. But then when you were talking, I was thinking about all just the past few jobs I've had. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think I've ever met a female in IT. So that does show us that it is, male dominant more so. So that is a very inspiring thing for you to bring up. And I agree with you. I would be intimidated too. I went for criminal justice and I ended up here, but there was only a few girls with me, and you feel nervous. You don't want to raise your hand. You feel like you know less. So I think that's very powerful. And I appreciate you saying that for the gals that are, on this call and that will see this. So yes, Andrew, did not call you mean. It's just something that you go through when you're.
Well, Carson was one of our star students. I like to think I pushed the students. Let's say that. Yes, I gave them expectations to hold to, and they met them.
That's great. Anything else from anyone? No, what great conversation. Okay, well, thank you so much to the presenters taking time, and to Andrew and the alumni coming back. That's awesome to hear from you because you guys went through it all, and look at you now. Look how, like Andrew used the word star. That's pretty cool. And thanks to our students for taking the time with us. We really appreciate getting on. So like I mentioned, if you want a job shot or want more information, come see us. Let us know if we can help you in any way. And if not, that's okay. We'll be in touch with you, hopefully. So thank you so much for joining us. And stay warm out there. It's super, super cold. So stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you guys later.